Well, all right. Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. My name is Jason Levine, and thank you so much for joining me today here on Adobe Live, YouTube, and Twitter Periscope for my Adobe Video and Audio Masterclass. Today, focusing on 5 hidden gems in Premiere Pro and Adobe Media Encoder. So, over the last couple of Fridays, we've been switching back and forth between video and audio workflows. And I thought for today, after we've been doing this Premiere Pro Daily Creative Challenge all week, which has been amazing, and I want to point out that if you haven't done it already, if you haven't even started to investigate the Daily Creative Challenges for video, highly recommend you going to behance.net/challenge/premiere. Sign up and get started. In fact, here I can just show you real quickly. I'll bounce over to my screen here so you can see the URL for yourself. It's been so much fun. The community has really embraced this. It's just been awesome. There's a Discord that we've set up where we've got we're approaching 1,000 members. Let's get to 1,000 by next week. That would be amazing. We were at just about 100 on Monday, if that tells you anything. So the community is growing. It's been awesome. It's just been just an incredible experience as always. And I'm so grateful for all of you for tuning in and watching and inspiring me and inspiring others in taking these challenges. Okay, so as always, we're going to get started in just a moment here. I'm going to be following primarily the chat over at behance.net/Adobe Live. So I know we've got some people coming to us on the YouTube side. What's up, Africa Motivation? Hello, Jim Tillman. My dear friend Jim Tillman, how are you doing? I'll be speaking with you later today. Hussein Al-Masawi, nice to see you. Gregory Bracco, great to see you as well. And we've got Howard Pinsky, my good friend and fellow colleague Howard, coming to us. We've got Siva and Baptiste and Jacob Hoffman from Massachusetts. And Gary Whipperman. Adam Levine wishes he was as cool as Jason. That's very nice. Fun fact, my middle name is Adam. Wade Acuff, what's up? How are you all doing? Daniel Newman, thank you so much. Steve Kosoboom, always nice to see you from New Zealand. Michael Frostbutter from LA. All right, so many great. Laura Sviland, thank God it's Friday. Absolutely couldn't agree more. And of course, all of our mods and regulars in the Adobe chat. All right, so let's go ahead and get started here. I'm going to switch over to my screen, and we're going to start with the first hidden gem feature. It's actually a combination of things, and it involves using the options or the wrench menu inside of the program monitor. All right, so as with all of our Adobe apps, there's lots of different ways to see things, to enable certain functions, and usually there's multiple locations in the app where you can do that, let alone all the keyboard shortcuts that you can use to do that. Now, anybody who's watched me over the years knows that I'm so bad at keyboard shortcuts. I think it's for years because when we used to travel before the days of live streaming, I just didn't have the ability to memorize various keyboard shortcuts because we would go to different countries and we would use the respective keyboards in those countries. So if we were in Sweden, we'd use the Swedish keyboard. And if we were in Germany, we'd use the German keyboard. Well, the configurations are all different. The keyboard shortcuts are different. They're not the same as the US keyboard. So I just got used to using menu items because those are consistent regardless of language of the app. So I'm really terrible at those. What is my point about this? The point is that if you go to the program monitor, all right, so we're here in the program monitor. I don't know, I just skipped ahead there. Sorry. I like this first frame. And in the program monitor, I want you to click on the settings menu here, also known as our little wrench menu. There is a fountain of awesome things in here that you just need to be aware of that you can access from there. Yes, you can do it in other places for some of these, but for some, this is the one-stop location to actually enable some of these functions, okay? Now, you've got your standard options here like composite, alpha, multicam. You can even enter the comparison view from here, which is the same as this button, which you can add down into the button editor. Comparison view, again, this is something we covered earlier this week with the Daily Creative Challenge. You can use this if you're doing like color matches or trying to grade 2 shots together. It'll show you a side-by-side, a reference clip, your actual clip, or a before and after. So that's pretty useful. Standard stuff, though. This is also where, if you're working in VR, by the way, you can access, I don't have VR at the moment, so, but this is where you can enable VR video as well as access the various settings for how VR is displayed, along with entering the Adobe Immersive environment if you're wearing a headset. And with that headset, if you have ambisonic audio capabilities, this is where you can monitor ambisonics, live as you're playing back the video. So what does that mean? If you're cutting VR, you have an ambisonic soundtrack, as you move your head with monitor ambisonics enabled, it'll follow your movement as it's tracking your head. So super cool to know where those are. I've got a lot of questions about these because I did a VR video on how to work with VR in Premiere about 2.5 years ago. These things weren't in there yet. So I need to update that at some point. Okay. Then we have, again, a couple of additional standard ones, but these are super important. Playback and pause resolution. Now, the playback resolution is accessible right here, okay? And for anyone who's not familiar, most of you probably are, this just allows you to drop the visible resolution on screen to give you just better, snappier, faster playback. If you're working with, say, 4K footage on a slightly older laptop, maybe that's a little bit underpowered and doesn't have a lot of RAM, you're probably not going to be able to cut 4K at full resolution just because it's going to be a pretty heavy load on the system. So you can change the playback to half res, quarter res, and again, depending upon the raster size here, you'll see the options for 1/8 or 1/16. But this is completely non-destructive. So all that does is it'll play every fourth pixel basically, but when you stop or pause, you can choose to pause at full resolution, okay? Or you can have them synchronized full and full like I do here. It just really depends on the configuration of your system. Now, one feature that we don't get to talk about a lot that a couple of people have asked me about over the years, we added this high quality playback setting. Because what you may have noticed is if you have playback and pause set to the same thing, say for instance, half res, you may have noticed that when you stop or pause, there's like a momentary visual shift and the pixels look a little bit different. So when you enable high quality playback from this menu, when those two things are synchronized, you will have the exact same display whether you're playing or pausing. There's none of that momentary shift. So that's what that feature does. Keep in mind that keeping high quality playback enabled is you're going to have a slightly heavier hit on your CPU and or GPU, primarily CPU here. So keep that in mind. I don't typically keep this on because it's not really an issue for me, and I don't mind that momentary thing. And I usually don't keep playback and pause at the same resolutions anyway. If anything, I'll, again, if it's like a whole bunch of 4K clips, I'll cut at 1/4 res, and you can see, especially like the text, everything just gets real blocky. Oops, let me wind back. But when I stop, everything sharpens up back to the way it's supposed to be, right? So again, that's 1/4 res playback, full res stop or pause, okay? So just kind of essential to know where that paused resolution and high quality playback setting is, all right? Two other things in this menu that I want to point out, and then I'll go back to the chat here in just a second. Okay, couple of really useful things. Now, you can access what we call showing audio time units in this menu as well. Now, this is usually something that you'll modify down here. Actually, no, it's not there. It's in the flyout menu of the actual timeline, right? Yes, show audio time units here. What is this function for? So this takes you out of frame mode and puts you into, again, I've been saying this for 20 years. I don't know why we call this audio time units. I don't know where that comes from. I'm sure there is a reason. I'm sure it means something to someone. It means nothing to me because what you're seeing is what you're working in are samples. Samples per second, okay? What's cool about that, if you're going into samples per second, is that now you can shift audio and video outside of the frame boundary, all right? So if you've ever done an edit and, you've noticed like, here, I'll just zoom in here. This is not necessarily going to make sense for this particular one because this is synchronized audio, but I'm going to unlink these for a moment here. All right, I'm going to drift this one around. So let's say that, here we are on a frame boundary, okay? And, I'm looking at the sync of this, but it's just not quite right. Oh, and here I should be in regular frame so that you can see. All right, so here we are on this frame, and, things just aren't quite synced. So when you're in audio time units, this now allows you to move in this case, we're in 48 kilohertz. That's your standard for video. So 48,000 samples per second. So you can move in these extremely small intervals. And I don't know if if my little time indicator can be seen there. Let me see if that tooltip will show up. You can't see it. Hold on. Let me move this over. Zoom in. Let's see if you can see it now. Nope. I'm trying to get it so you can see that I'm moving an individual. Oh, there you go. So I'm moving in individual samples now, all right? Again, you have a lot of flexibility here because you can slip and slide things outside of the frame boundary, which sometimes for audio sync is necessary. However, caveat, if you're going to go into this method, you must remember to turn it off, because if you stay in audio time units and you start moving stuff around, you're probably going to screw things up at some point. Because you'll think you're snapping to a frame boundary and you're not going to understand why it's not in sync, and it's just a chaos. So just remember that if you're going to go into audio time units mode, to remember to disable it, okay? Last two things I'm going to show you in here that are really essential. Dropped frame indicator. So this is really useful because, again, especially I just had someone in the Discord yesterday, we were talking about, working with mixed formats. So you have H.264 and you've got some red footage and you've got some, mirrorless or DSLR, could be MP4, could be H.265, could be a combination of things, maybe some MXF. And you're playing back, and while it might look good, maybe it looks like you're dropping frames, or you don't know. You want to know, am I dropping frames? So by enabling this dropped frame indicator, it's going to give you this little green light here when everything is going just fine, 0 frames dropped during playback. And now when I play this back, if I drop a frame, which I have not yet, well, I'm in quarter res right now. Let's see if I go to full res, if it can play this back. 0 frames drop. Okay. My performance is going great today. I'm not dropping any frames. If you drop a frame, this will turn yellow and it will tell you how many frames you've dropped during playback. So all that really means is, again, it's just an indicator that, hey, you're hitting the system pretty hard. Maybe you want to drop your fractional playback to something a little more manageable, like half res, and do your cutting that way, okay? Super useful. I always keep this thing enabled. The other thing here, of course, good old safe margins, all right? We don't really think about this too much these days, in the YouTube world, but it's still somewhat important. I mean, you kind of want to know sort of, I don't know. I have mixed thoughts on this. When you were authoring DVDs and things, this was really important. Title safe, action safe. We don't really think so much about action safe anymore, right? We're not authoring DVDs, but there is sort of a specific kind of placement where you don't want to be in terms of placing lower thirds and things of that nature. So this is really useful. Now, this is going to segue actually into the next hidden feature. So it's the wrench menu, the settings menu, and the program monitor. Hidden gem number 1. The next one is the recent addition of rulers, guides, and snapping inside the program monitor via the Essential Graphics panel. So when we modified Essential Graphics, I think it was maybe a little over a year ago. Is it 2 versions ago? I'm kind of forgetting now. When we initially introduced Essential Graphics, right, and you could create graphics like this one you see here. This was actually a lower third that we just grabbed from Adobe stock on the last stream. While you have your basic alignment controls and things like that, we didn't have any way for you to line things up visually. In other words, we didn't have rulers like Photoshop. We didn't have guides. We didn't really have anything. We had the safe margins, but that was kind of it. So, if you wanted to really grid things out and line things up, you'd probably create some kind of template like an overlay in Photoshop, and then you could use it here. But everybody was saying, you've got this in After Effects, you have this everywhere. Why don't we have this here? So you can enable this functionality up in the View menu here, all right, Show Rulers. You can see now we've got those standard rulers here corresponding to the associated frame size and height. So in this case, you can see this is a 1920 by, that's approximately 1080 right there, okay? So there's our rulers. And then guides. Yes, so now you can simply click and pull out guides directly from the ruler just like that. And you can create your own schema, if you have specific locations for where you want content to be. You can save these out. So you can see we've got some guide templates here. I even have one called Safe Margins. So here, let's clear this. Let's open up one of my templates, Safe Margins. And this is a little custom safe margin one that I made, okay? If you go back under the View menu, you can see that under Add Guide, You've got some options here so you can display things, you know, again, top or bottom, but you see I can just drag them from the top and bottom, right from the ruler, and just drag them out onto the canvas. You can choose the color of those guides. You can choose the orientation, but again, this is just going to add one manually for you. You don't really need to do that, but this is where you'll effectively change the color. So having rulers and guides is so useful because, again, if you're trying to align things, it just makes a lot of sense. But alignment alone is not enough, because what if we actually want to snap things to a particular place? Well, this is where this function, which you can access through the wrench menu again, is so super useful, and it is Snap in Program Monitor. Now, there is also a keyboard shortcut for this function. Let's go ahead and type some text here. All right, so we'll call this Beulah Land. That is the name of this track. All right, and I'm going to just center that here. Oh, here, let me center justify as I always do. And let's scale this up a bit. Okay, I don't know, what are these fonts that this keeps defaulting to? Nudista? What is that? I don't know. I sometimes don't understand some of the font choices. Very nice. Okay. All right, so let's say I've got this text now. Now, again, previous version, how do I align this to anything? I don't know. Well, now you have some options. So you can use a keyboard shortcut, Command or Control on the PC. When I do that, you'll see now that as I approach the centers, I get these snapping lines. So this is exactly what you know and love from Photoshop. Makes it really easy to align and snap things together. Similarly, if you've drawn guides, what? It snaps to the guides. So you just can't misalign? You can't align things incorrectly. This just makes it so easy. This is kind of one of those undiscovered things. It's been around for at least a year and a half or so, but not everybody would know it. Not everybody would see it. You certainly wouldn't figure out that keyboard shortcut. So again, from the settings menu here, if you simply turn on Snap in Program Monitor and leave it there just like that. All right. Now, oh, whoops, did I turn it on or turn it off? Turn it on. There you go. Now, hands-free. As I drag this around, it's snapping to my guides. All right. Snap it to the edge. I mean, I don't have to tell you the usefulness of this, right? It just makes sense. So having that snapping capability, so useful, such a welcomed addition. Absolutely love having this. Really, really cool. Okay. All right. Let's scroll back over here for a second. And we're going to go to feature number 3. And let me go ahead and turn off my guides as well. By the way, when you want to make adjustments to these, you have to have the Program Monitor selected. So let's go up to this. Let's clear the guides, but I'll leave everything on. I'm going to move over to the chat here real quickly. Bullseye Media. Yes, I was holding down the Command key, Control key on the PC. Daniel Newman, no more hours of arrow keys up and downing it. Yes. By the way, it's also worth mentioning that if you also have multiple layers selected in the Essential Graphics panel here, this was introduced a couple of years ago, you can freely move things around, but if you hold down Shift, just like in Photoshop, you can constrain horizontal or vertical, I said it backwards, horizontal or vertical movement by holding down Shift. All right. So with multiple things selected. So it's just the way it's supposed to be, right? It's the way we want it. It's the way it should have been. It's the way that it makes sense. All right. I think I just kind of screwed that up. I don't know what I did there. Hold on. Let me go back. I don't know what I just did. That looks better. Okay. Very good. Okay. So here is the next thing that I want to show you, which is, again, a really cool welcomed addition inside of Essential Graphics, and it's the ability to work with gradients on shape layers that you create for lower thirds or any graphical element. So again, now this was a template that we downloaded via Adobe Stock, and it was a free one. So if I type in lower third, might just see it populate here. Yeah, so it was this one right here. Modern Lines, lower third. Really simple, lower third right. Tells you a little bit about it. It's using that. Oh, that's why it defaulted to Oswald. That's this font. Okay. Shows you all the keywords for searching and everything else. So I really like this one. And it comes in clean and simple and really nice. And of course, you can edit all parameters of this. So if I don't like the fill color of that top line or the bottom line, I can simply click on the fill and change them. But what you'll notice is that you actually have fill options when you create graphics or shapes inside of the Essential Graphics panel. By the way, it's also worth pointing out, you can do that here via this new layer button, or you can draw them freeform with the pen tool right here. Okay, so always options. All right, so instead of going to solid, now look what you have. You have linear gradient and radial gradient options. So if I go to linear gradient, this is actually the color that I took before. So I was trying to, again, using the eyedropper, I kind of wanted this bottom line to have a gradient reminiscent of this color range down here. All right, you can make your adjustments just as you do in Photoshop right here. Click OK. And you even have editability of that here as well. Pretty cool. Let's go to the top line and do the same thing. And now look at that. Oh, it just looks so much, I don't know what it is about just having a cool, slick little gradient, but it just looks better, right? Something about it just looks lovely. Let's go back into fill. All right, maybe we'll do a radial gradient on this one. And let's see, for color range, should we do the same? Everybody knows I start to get very nervous when working with color because I'm bad at it. Maybe bluish. What do you think? That could be pretty cool. What say ye? All right. Something like that. Okay. Easy. Simple. Okay. Again, you can see here you have your little controls on the gradient right here. If we were to make this a little bit higher, you can kind of get a better idea. Flip it around. Something like that. And then readjust the height. The really cool thing about this is that, again, now when I play this back, those changes are just automatically applied. Like there's no render, there's no anything. It just works directly on screen. So having that gradient capability in there is so nice. Gradients stress me out to no end because when I'm drawing them in Photoshop, it's just not my thing. So I do like so much experimentation. It's impossible to mess these up. You can't get it wrong. And again, you can use the eyedropper to pick sample colors and do everything the way that you already know. It just works as expected, and it just gives it that little extra. I mean, now, look, I just customized this free lower third, and I love this. I will use this again, rather than just having it kind of simple. Although sometimes I like the simple plain look, right? Nothing wrong with that either. All right, let's go back to our chats here. See, Daniel Newman, that looks cool. Ish is my favorite color. Very nice. Giancarlo Cisante, how do you stabilize shaky footage? Actually covered this just 2 days ago on the Daily Creative Challenge. Short answer is under your effects menu. All right, I'm not going to show that here because that's not today's stream, but if you simply come up to effects and you type in warp, what you want to use is the warp stabilizer. That is how you fix shaky handheld footage. All right. Let's see what else we got in here. Okay. I'm like Clippy, but with great hair and better tips. Thank you. Thank you, Daniel. Anybody who remembers Clippy. Clippy was pretty cute initially and then super annoying. So hopefully I'm still the former and not the latter. All right. Aria, how are you? Good to see you again. By the way, your edit was so good. I may actually show it at the end of this if we have time because I enjoyed it so much. Because you took the extra step to add a little musical addition in there. You know what I'm talking about. All right. All right, how do I zoom into the timeline so quickly? Oh, okay. So I don't know if you're asking how I'm doing that. That is a function of the operating system. So that's just using Mac OS's accessibility zoom, just enabling that. Now, what's curious is I'm still on this production machine of mine. I have refused to move over to Mojave because a lot of my plugins and things aren't yet supported under Mojave. So, under Catalina. So I'm still on Mojave on this system, 10.14.6. And in Mojave, Up until Mojave, so 10.14.6 versions of the Mac OS, you had this smooth zoom. Now under Catalina, it's just automatic. So this is a 2.5x zoom under accessibility. Now it just goes, regular 2.5x. There's none of that smooth sort of gliding portamento glissando transition, which sucks. It doesn't look as pretty in Catalina, and they should fix that. All right. But otherwise, as far as timeline, if you're talking about any other timeline zooming, the backslash key to zoom in and out of your full timeline, and then I'm just using the plus and minus keys, for regular zoom. All right. Let's quickly just bounce over to YouTube and see if we've got any questions over there as well. Okay. Yes, in fact, Sharisa Joseph, you'll be able to watch this, of course, on the Creative Cloud YouTube channel. Gregory Brocco from Long Island, what's up? Okay, Victoria Paul Soul, hey, how are you? Neo Pool, send a save to Brazil. All right. Hello, Mr. Salapatas from Greece. Okay, very cool. Bep Tweebot, hello. All right, so let's go back to Premiere, shall we? Yes, okay. What am I doing? Why am I doing this? I have my Stream Deck. Whoops. What just happened? Okay. All right. What was I on now? That was feature 3. Oh, okay. Feature 4. So no more questions on gradients or shapes. Gregory Brocco, is gradient only available in Adobe Graphics? I don't see just by typing text. Ah, yes. So excellent point. So yeah, if I come back to that, and I don't know the reason for this just yet, but that is correct. You'll notice that on text layers, you don't have the gradients here. You only have the gradient option available on graphics created in here. If this is something that you want to see on text, which obviously I do too, I would recommend going to our user voice. And if it's not already there as a feature request, make that feature request. This is also something you can do in the new betas that we have now made available to all Creative Cloud users, if you're so inclined, because directly from the help menu in the betas, this is a release version, but there's actually a submit feature request function. So again, if you were to go to your Creative Cloud desktop app, you will see a beaker here and it says beta apps. And again, for all Creative Cloud customers, you now have access to, I don't know that you're going to have access to Illustrator necessarily, but you'll have access to all of the video and audio applications as beta. If you're part of other beta programs, you'll see them there too, and I am. But Premiere, Rush, Audition, Character Animator, After Effects, Media Encoder, you'll be able to install all of these. These can also install side by side. They don't replace your existing install. You do not have to replace them. They can coexist together. And you can also kind of get to see what we're working on. And the funny, cool thing is that, some of these apps we're updating daily. So you can really get a peek inside of the development of things and influence the development of features as we move along. Okay? Ifram Karim, can you shortly give a short overview of the whole video again? I don't know what part of it you want, but real quickly, as far as the 3 things we've covered. So the wrench menu so far, 3 out of 5, right? So the wrench menu of the program monitor, all your various views, enabling VR and VR options, pause and playback resolutions and high quality playback. I showed audio time units for slipping beyond the frame boundaries, showing drop frame indicators for if your system is having a difficult time and you're dropping frames during playback, this will tell you that visually, and then the ability to immediately show safe margins. This also includes an area where you can add and show rulers and guides and snapping in the program monitor, which is really one of the coolest things. These can also be accessed with the program monitor selected under the view menu, show rulers, show guides, add guides, snapping, and guide templates. And as mentioned, you can save those templates out. They're just like .guides files. By the way, these .guides files can also be imported into After Effects, which is super cool. So, you might have a design for your graphics or motion graphics that requires everything to be in a particular position or state. This will allow you to create that layout, share it with your MoGraph designer, and now they know exactly where all the graphics have to fall and where they need to be and where they need to land. So it's really useful that you can share those, and they're super small. They're, text file equivalents in size, okay? We would request gradient and text. Yeah, Gregory, I mean, go ahead and do it. It may already be in there, so I'm not entirely sure. All right. Okay, that's it for now. No more questions. Okay, what about over on the periscopes? 8-bit blood. It looks super dope. Thank you so much. I agree. And I'm no designer. I'm the first to say not. I defer to others. But even for me, just that subtle this right here, because I'm borrowing that color and it's right. It looks slick. Again, I'm garbage at doing this, but it just looks like. Oh, by the way, notice I just snapped that back into position. Like that was driving me nuts. Just so easy with snapping in the program monitor. How did we do this before? Very painfully. That's how. It's not painful anymore. All right. Okay, Irfan, thank you very much. Okay, number 4. Da-da. Wow, are we actually super on time? Might even end early today. Great, I'll get to show some of the Discord submissions. Number 4 is a feature that some of you may wind up having to use. So it's something called the time tuner, and it's a function of the media encoder export in Premiere. And the idea behind this is if you have, let's say, switch back over to this for a second. If you had something like a 30-second edit, or rather, you are required to deliver a 30-second edit, or maybe it actually needs to be 29 seconds. And if you're like in the US, maybe you're in drop frame. So it's 29 seconds and 29 frames. Okay. So not quite 30, like that 1 frame difference. But you edit your final video and it's 30 seconds and 10 frames. What do? Well, in the broadcast world, this is a real problem because they will bounce it. Or it'll get cut off. So I don't actually know what happens anymore. Years ago, they'd send it back and they go, hey, your credits are going to get cut off. You need to re-edit this. So you as the editor would have to go back, scan through all 30 seconds and then find, 11 frames or whatever it is to cut out manually, right? At a time loss to you. So what Time Tuner does is it automatically looks at moments of inactivity, no visual motion, no sound, and then it will seamlessly extract those frames to bring it to a desired length that you want. Up or down 10%, all right? So this is really effective and really, really useful in broadcast environments. It also works best where you have interview style content, documentary style content, things that don't necessarily have a lot of music or underscore. If the underscore is buried and it's sort of, again, not meant to be heard, not a big deal. If music is a feature, it can do some weird things because, again, it's going to try and look for silent areas, inactive areas, and it may cut the music, but it's pretty good at preserving where there are timed cuts. But it's really best for things like if you think about like a broadcast TV interview, there's no music under the interview. Maybe in the outro and the intro, there it doesn't matter. So it won't affect that in any significantly noticeable way. But we're gonna give it a little bit of a challenge here because I want to go ahead and do this with the piece that we edited yesterday. So this is our cut to the beat piece. All right, let's play a couple seconds of this. So this was me just kind of showing you how to automate to sequence, dropped in markers, then automatically had Premiere place those cuts at the downbeat. Take a look. One of my favorite shots of the Rhino ever. By the way, now this was shot, if you're wondering, why is the crop so tight? We were, social distancing, we were not even 2 meters, maybe 3 maximum. I don't even think it was 3. It was like 2.5 meters from this massive creature in an open Jeep in the middle of the bush in Africa. And I was shooting this with a 400 millimeter lens, handheld. So this is why it is so tight. I mean, I'm zoomed all the way out, but it was just incredible. Anyway, timed cuts. And if we get to the end here, here's my problem. 3101, okay? Not an uncommon thing. Part of that is because it has to fade to black, right? So there's those few extra frames in there, about 10. I usually give about 10 to 15 frames of black, especially coming out of a cross dissolve. And then I also have some audio trail off. And I added some automated reverb to kick in at the end there so that it tails off to kind of fill the black, all right? But this added an additional 25 frames. Now, the real challenge here, of course, is that, I mean, I could just cut all that back and just kind of make it super abrupt. I don't want to have to do that. And again, this is only 30 seconds, so it's not that big of a deal. But if we're talking about a 30-minute TV show, or a traditional, 23 or 22-minute episode, it needs to be 22 minutes, or 21 minutes, 59 seconds and 23 frames. But you're at 22:15 or 22:30. That's going to take you an enormous amount of time to find those individual frames where, it just might be a moment of slightly longer pausing or something like that you can take out that wouldn't be visually noticeable, right? So this is where Time Tuner can save the day. And it's such a cool feature. And again, very much a hidden gem and undiscovered thing that we have inside of Premiere. So with your sequence selected, if you go up to the File menu, what is going on there? Why am I, what was that? Huh? It's the strangest thing I've ever seen. Why is my File menu doing that? Do you see that? Nothing is available in my File menu. What? Problems live? I can't even close the app. That's strange. Okay. I will close it. I'm going to have to force quit it. Oh, no, I don't have to force quit, but let's just see. Let's just quit and come back. All right. Oh, I see you're talking about Sabi Sabi. A resort where Jason went and got these clips. They take you out in open trucks and you can take pics of all the animals. Yeah, and it's important to note, Aria and Steve, about that is Sabi Sabi. It's also, while it's a protected private reserve, they don't do any kind of assistance there. So it's a natural preserve in the sense that it is survival of the fittest. So actually, you may have seen in one of those clips there. Oh, interesting. I wonder if my drive went offline. No? How weird. It just totally lost. It just lost all the projects I was working on. That's really bizarre. All right, well, whatever. Whatevs. We'll just go back to another recent one that I was opening. Very, very strange. Very strange. But I'm not going to worry about that for right now. Okay. So, what I was saying was, though, is that they don't feed the animals. They don't assist the animals. When I shot some of those that we used, that I allowed many of you to use, there were a couple of scenes that I didn't put in there where there were lions that were they were bleeding and they were injured because apparently, and the trackers and the people who work there, they know these animals and they know the families of these animals. And apparently that day that we were there shooting, that particular day, there'd been another pack of lions that had come in, and like the males were fighting and trying to take over. And I guess this one male in particular who'd been there for a long time, he was in the grass lying there immobile because he was really badly hurt, but that's the jungle, right? So, it's really interesting because there's some preserves and things where they bring in food for the animals. They actually do stuff. They don't do that here. It's kind of amazing. I mean, that's what keeps the ecosystem so natural and alive. And when you're there, it's something else. The protected parks are cool, but they're a little different. You see a lot of fences and you see a lot of assistance going on. These, watch out, It's cool, and it's also slightly terrifying. Okay, Time Tuner. So now wait a second. I need to open up. Can I see my recent project? I don't even see the recent one in here. Hold on, let me see if I can find. What just happened? I think my Finder just barfed. What is going on here? All right, test 5. Yes, let's go to DCC day 5. Thank you. Heavens. To Murgatroyd. Okay. Is it bringing in this content? It is, slowly. All right, so let's go up to export, media, where I started 5 minutes ago. Glad I could just waste a whole bunch of time. Okay, so here in our export settings, if we go down about halfway, you're gonna see there's all these other tabs: effects, video, audio, multiplexer, captions, publish. Under the effects tab, you will see all kinds of little hidden gems that you can add to your video, including, but not limited to, the ability to add LUTs on export. So this is particularly useful if you're doing dailies and you're shooting everything flat or raw, but the client wants to see, what did you shoot today? Well, you know, depending upon the client, if you send them a bunch of flat, raw clips that have no saturation, and they don't know that, they're going to think something's wrong. So you want to usually put some kind of a display LUT on there. This allows you to do that just by enabling this. And then you have access to all of the various LUTs that we have that you will normally see inside the Lumetri color panel. Okay, I'm just kind of showing you some of the examples of them here, right? Super cool, all right? This also includes SDR conform, image overlays, name overlays, time code overlays, and then the time tuner. And this is the one that is just super cool, all right? So again, this is telling us current duration is 31 seconds and 1 frame. We need this to be exactly 30. So I'm going to choose, I'm going to type in my target duration. So you can also just drag the percentage slider, but I don't know what that percentage is. So just type in your target, and it automatically figures out what that duration is. And you'll see you have preset use, target duration, or duration change. In this case, we're going to this target duration. All right, based on the timing here. And that's all you have to do. Let's go and we'll export this as H.264, and I will use my YouTube 1080p preset for that. I'll just re-enable this, sorry about that. Target duration. Type this back in. Choose your preset before you set your time tuner, because then it's going to disable that, because that's not part of that preset, right? By the way, if I were to save this as a preset, like always make things 30 seconds, when I go up to the Save Preset button up here, Save Effect Settings. So if I added a time tuner setting, if I added a time code setting, if I added the name overlay, the image overlay, the LUT application, all of that can be saved as part of the preset. Super cool, right? Then you don't even have to think about it. This will come into play in a few seconds when I show you feature number 5, because you might have a whole bunch of stuff, dailies, that you want to show the client, and you want to do this process to all of them, but I don't want to have to do it manually to all of them. I'm going to show you how you can do it in an automated way, which is super, super awesome. All right. In fact, yeah, here, why don't I even do that? So, well, I'll time tune this one first, and then we'll make another. Okay, so let's go ahead and we'll add the time tuner, 30 seconds. I've got my H.264 custom here, and let's go ahead and we're going to stick this on the desktop. Yes, that's where it's going, and click export. Actually, and we can even import this back into the project. All right, cutting to the beat. Derek Laurie, Finder is evil. Yeah, I think that's what happened. I think the Finder crashed. It removed the folder. Excuse me, it removed the folder. And that's why I couldn't see anything to export, because it wasn't seeing media. And then when I relaunched, it wasn't seeing the project, but it's all there. But something weird happened in the Finder. Trisha Kennedy, ouch. Yeah. Hey, you know, it happens. It just happens. And that's it. It actually wasn't Premiere. It was the Finder in that case. Interesting. Yeah, I've never seen that. I've seen it probably once before. You know? Yes, indeed. True nature that day. I am going to show you the final product, Aria. Very, very, very excellent of you to ask. So now that I've done that, let me go into my project panel here. Let's go into our list view. And that's called D4 Cut to the Beat. Let's organize by name here so I can see it. I did just have this import, right? May have gone into another bin. It's on the desktop either way. I just exported it there. Where did I put it? Oh, maybe it's in Beulah land. No, it's not in there. D4. Cut. It can be somewhere in here. Great. Thank you, search. Winning. Oh, grief. Gag me with a spoon already. Oh my God. Ugh. Okay, here it is. You can see just exported. Okay. Here we go. Let's drag that in. Thank you. I'll just place it in a new timeline. Okay. And note. 30 seconds. Also note, it preserved all of my markers in there. Let's take a look and listen. Boom. Now, as mentioned, right, this had continuous loud music. That was the feature of the piece. If you were listening carefully, you probably heard some sections where it was like, oh, did the beat get slightly off or it sped up or slowed down? Because it was editing, right, frames, not at audio unit level, inside the music there. But the cuts themselves remained in time. So again, if that were underscore, not a feature of what was happening, you wouldn't really notice. If you weren't specifically listening to it, you probably wouldn't really notice. This was a bit of a challenge because I wouldn't recommend using that kind of piece for something like Time Tuner, but you can. And by the way, at the end of the day, who cares really? Unless, of course, you're like, I mean, unless I wrote that, I should care. It's my music. But you see what I'm saying. If it has to be a specific length, we just did that in seconds. We don't have to think about it, right? It's awesome. It can really save the day. But I told you where it works best. You see where it works, but there are some limitations to it. Try it, experiment, have some fun. It's one of those hidden gems. Cool. Claudie, hey, what's up? Claudie's coming up next with the Adobe Illustrator Creative Challenge in approximately 13 minutes. So you want to check that out for sure. Savik Chakraborty, I'm one of your biggest fans. Love your style. Oh, thank you so much. And greetings from India, my favorite place in the entire universe. All right. Arya, yes, good ear there. You heard some strange drum beats. And that's the thing. And that's why I'm saying if music is the feature, it's not a great solution. All right. If it's underscore, and what I mean by that is, right, you have a scene where there's some just music underneath, ominous, whatever, but it's not the feature. You know, the dialogue is the feature. You're not paying attention to music. It's seamless. You wouldn't notice. You really don't. It's quite amazing. So it can be very, very useful. These days, very few of us, if we're not in the broadcast environment or delivering things for Netflix, do we have to be frame perfect on our deliveries. But there are those cases where things do have to have exact timings, and this is a good way to ensure that. All right. Wasn't perfect for this, but still cool. Yes, indeed. Nice, nice. All right. Wait, Akef, what's up? Goal. All right. Sweet. Okay, wow, there's so many of you in here today. All right, and the final piece that we will discuss today is something called watch folders. Oh, and I was going to make a preset. That's right. So remember I was just saying a couple minutes ago that what's really useful about creating presets here is that if you again, had something that you needed to deliver to a client, I'm going to use some very obvious LUT on here, and you have a bunch of footage that you want them to see, but maybe it's flat, maybe it's not graded, or maybe just for reasons that are many, you need to add time code. You need to add certain overlays. Like maybe we actually want to put, here we can do format, prefix and suffix, source file name, lots of different options here. This is coming from an edit, so this isn't going to matter in this case. But what this will do is we can save all these additions that we're adding here as a preset. So I'm going to call this YouTube 1080p with overlays plus LUTs, okay? And click OK on that. And I'm saving the effects settings. So that now becomes a preset in my H.264 user preset menu, okay? Right there. Very nice. All right. So now it's that time of day, and I'm with the client, and they're saying to me, you know, like, hey, you know, I want to see today's footage. I want to see all the stuff that you shot. And you're going, okay, cool. Do you want to see it with, you know, in some particular way? Oh, here, let me just close this and reopen that. I don't want any weirdness with this since we had that strange moment with Premiere a second ago. And they're like, yeah, no, I want to see all the footage, but make sure that you put the time code and make sure you have our logo bug on it for security reasons, and make sure you're adding a LUT because we're going to have some of the, you know, some of the other people in the room with us, and they don't understand. They don't understand flat, so you know you're going to want to do this so that they can kind of get it and that it's going to look sort of finished to them. Okay, no problem, cool. So to do that, we can take all of this footage, and with 2 or 3 clicks in here, we're going to set up what's called a watch folder. And a watch folder is going to allow you to dump a whole bunch of content in there and automatically convert or export to a specific format with things like overlays automatically, right? So you can use this to convert a bunch of clips in the background, or in the case of like I'm shooting stuff and I want to share it with people to quickly review it, but I want to add my logo or my copyright or whatever, you can create a preset and do that literally in seconds. So here in Media Encoder, up at the top, you'll see that we have this thing here called Watch Folders. We're going to click on Watch Folder and we're going to click plus. And it's going to ask you, well, where do you want to put this folder? So let's create a new folder on the desktop and we'll call it Content Brand. Okay. So the first step is you create the folder, okay? And then once you create the folder, you just need to choose what format you want to convert to. Now you can have multiple folders, by the way. We're just going to use one today. So we're going to do H.264. But more importantly, I want to use that preset that we just created. Right? Super cool. So now it's going to add a LUT and it's going to add an overlay to every bit of footage that we drop in there, okay? Here's how it works. So over here, oh, and by the way, and under Q, there's a function here to auto encode the watch folder. So that means that whenever you drop stuff in there, it automatically converts it. I'm going to turn that off just for a second. All right, let's come back over here. So here's our content brand folder down here, okay? And in here, under this new content alias, here's where I have the clips that I want to convert, all right? This is a whole bunch of various things that I shot, okay? So I'm going to grab a couple of these here. Don't know exactly what all of this is. All right. And I'm going to drag this into the content brand folder. All right. When I do that, now back over in Media Encoder, I'm going to turn on this auto encode watch folders. And what you are now seeing is it is going through and encoding that content. And by the way, if you look in the previews, can you see it's adding the file name, it's adding time code, and it is also applying the LUT that we wanted in the background using that preset. So we can be doing other things, right? So it's showing you all the clips that we added there. Here they are. And the status of the export here. All right. So easy. So super cool. And it's just doing it. And it's doing exactly what we want. And now it's done. All done. So now when I go back over to my desktop in the content brand folder, now you'll see here's all of the source footage. So they end up in folders for some reason based on time code when they were encoded, but that's fine. And then you have the output folder with all of our new media. And there it is. File name, time code. That actually really looks good with that LUT. So this was shot in my front yard right here. Familiar turntable scene that we saw over the last few days, all right? This one was in feet and frames, all right? Some San Francisco shots here. Oh, those look really good with that LUT. I'm gonna have to reuse that one. Maybe I'll resubmit that content for Adobe Stock. Okay, so watch folders, friends. How awesome was that? How easy, how cool, and again, how somewhat hidden is that? If you don't even go into Media Encoder manually, maybe you would see that watch folder thing. Maybe you wouldn't. Maybe you'd stumble on it. Maybe you wouldn't. It's just awesome, and so glad that that's in there. All right, let's see. That rainbow is beautiful. Yes, indeed. Okay, I promised you I was going to show you one more video submission. This is from Arya Kitten, and it looks like Arya Wagner here, who's in the chat. This was submitted for the Premiere Pro Daily Creative Challenge. So for, again, cutting to the beat. Thought I would do a nice little feature on this one. So let's go ahead and switch over here real quickly before we end the stream, and here it is. All right, everyone, that's all the time we have today. Thank you so much. Coming up next, we've got Claudia with the Adobe Illustrator Daily Creative Challenge. So stick around for that. Have a great weekend, morning, noon, afternoon, evening, wherever you are in the world. And we will see you again next week. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.